Hi there, hope you're having a great day so far. Well, no doubt a lot of parents are feeling anxious and concerned about term 2 with a move to online and distant learning. These feelings are completely understandable. But one thing we do have to keep in mind and remember, the move to distant learning is to help reduce the spread of COVID-19, and this will not be forever. On the other hand, the thought of continuing your child's education from the dining room table is one that undoubtedly is causing a lot of parents tension and anxiety at the moment. And this is the biggest adjustment to our children's lives as we've ever known it. The good news is you're not expected to replace your teachers and you're not expected to become a subject matter expert. You're a parent and your job is to simply just be the best parent that you can be. And Kiddipedia's job is to help you be the best parent that you can be with the expert information and advice that we publish for you guys every day. You know, teaching our kids at home is certainly a challenge, but not an insurmountable problem. Given the right approach and the right tools, and lucky for us today, we're joined by James Burnett, who's going to share some of these tools and actually help us all. Now, James is the CEO and co-founder of Origo Education, a father of 3 and an expert on how to teach primary school children mathematics at school and at home. Now, Origo at Home, is a free online resource designed to help parents with more than 20,000 who have already accessed the program. Now, the online program has activities for each day of the week and is specific to different primary school year levels. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Great, Rachel. Thank you. Coping, even though I'm feeling very isolated.
Yeah, like everyone at the moment. Well, first of all, right. Well done you, and congratulations on launching the online program. Just quickly, we've got a ton of questions we're going to run through, but tell us initially what inspired you to build and launch it?
Well, this is, you hear this word all the time. It's unprecedented times, and children are just going to have to learn at home. And they talk about flattening the curve of the coronavirus, but we have to flatten the forgetting curve. This research tells us that children learn up to a third of their learnings over a long summer break, for example. And our summer breaks are only 6 or 7 weeks. So if they're missing a term of schooling, formal instruction, they can actually forget a lot. So we have to make sure we flatten that curve too. And that can only happen if you're doing some kind of instruction at home, not practice necessarily, instruction.
Yeah. Now, maths is one of those things that you either, I think, love or hate it. Now, I've got a question for you. Is maths a discipline that you either have a natural ability with, or is it something that you can improve with practice over time? I'd really love to know.
It is most definitely something you can improve with instruction over time. I won't use the word practice. That's once you have an understanding. So you give them the understanding first. Now, people often say to me, you must be very good at maths because you own a math company. Well, no, I struggled through my primary school years and even high school because I just didn't get it. Mathematics is very abstract, very symbolic. Lots of memorization. This is how we learn mathematics, and it was a quiet subject of the day. And we weren't allowed to turn and talk to our person beside us to think and explain our thinking. But when I went to university, I discovered another way to learn and therefore to teach mathematics. You teach it with understanding. So it turned me around, and I now, that's why I started the company in '95, is to give teachers and also their parents those aha moments. We can all learn mathematics. A good question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maths may be a subject that many parents and or children may struggle with, but I'd love to know, is the key to learning and retaining the math skills just to make it fun along the way?
Yes, it has to be fun. And that's one of my 5 tips that you published for me. You have to make it engaging. They've got to want to do it. It doesn't mean it can't be hard. I mean, a lot of us go to the gym or work out, and that's hard, but it's still fun, isn't it? We can make it fun. So that's the slight difference there. We're just going to make sure it's both fun and engaging, and it can be a struggle at times, and that's okay. Productive struggle is a good thing.
Cool. Now, we published your article titled Top Tips for Teaching Kids Mathematics at Home. So for a parent who hasn't read the article yet, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what it's about and what inspired you to write it?
Well, because of all this need, parents are sitting around at home and there's a lot of anxiety. So the number one tip is don't try and teach children the way you learned it. They're two very different ways now. The way we learned it when we were in school is not what's being taught now. And that's a good thing. I would not want to go to my general practitioner who was practicing medicine the way he was 30, 40, 50 years ago. We learn a lot through research. So things have changed, and I can help you with that. Second of all, be positive and foster the ability to want to do mathematics. And the third tip was, foster positive attitude yourself. Be a role model. The worst thing I can hear is, "Oh, I was never very good at math." Go ask your father. Go ask your mother. As soon as you say that, you give them the right to say, "Oh, it's okay not to be."
Yes.
You don't want to say that. Keep that to yourself. I understand how you feel. Doesn't mean you need to share it. Keep that inside here, like so many other things you do. Head outside and try and do some other mathematics with the children. Look at my article that you published and get a couple of quick ideas. But it's not just about writing symbols. Mathematics is so much more. So it's not just practice. It's just doing things, hanging pictures on a wall. How do I space these out? Can you give me a hand with this? How would you do this? These sorts of questions. And finally, you've got to make it interesting and fun. So games. My daughter loves to play, I've got it here, 5 Crowns is a great game that we play in isolation. Things like that. It all involves mathematics. So get them doing some things as a family unit. It's a great opportunity for us to sit down and to talk with our children and bring out the math.
Yeah. Well, the article itself has got the 5 tips, and we'll have a link through to the article, which I think all parents should be reading, definitely, because it's got some wonderful tips in there. But aside from that, I understand that you've accumulated your fair share of tips to help support parents since creating the likes of Go Maths and Stepping Stones mathematic workbooks for Australian schools. So I'd love to know, what do you think is the most important tip you can give parents who are at home right now trying to teach their children maths, the kids that would normally be in primary school?
Yeah, it's that number one tip in that article is just don't try and teach it the way you learned it. It's very different the way we did learn it. And there's 2 pain points where this really becomes evident. Is when your child's trying to do computation, so calculations of some kind with a paper and pencil, or maybe in the head, but calculations, computation. The other pain point is just learning tables or helping them retain their what we call tables. Today they're called number facts. So anything up to 9 times 9 or 9 plus 9, and then their related facts in division and subtraction. So anything up to that, that's what we call number facts, and we used to call tables. So in regards to that first one, just let me talk about some examples. You need to understand that teaching is not an event, it's a process. So when you're looking at your child's work, it's a window into a sequence of teaching. So don't be critical of what's going on now, because the teacher's doing something purposefully to get them to an end result. Now, a typical 10-year-old in schools around Australia will be learning how to compute things like this. I wrote this down to help you. Right, how do I do that? And the child, if the teacher's using a good math program, the child will be using areas like rectangles to help them understand how to do that maybe in their head. Now, most adults probably can't even do that in their head very quickly. But we try and help children do that in their head, because they should use what they're equipped with first. And if they can't do it in their head, reach for a tool. What's the tool? It could be paper and pencil, or it could be one of these things. We didn't have this when we were children, so we had to learn lots of paper and pencil. So that's one thing that's very different. Okay, so when you look at what a child's doing in their approach, don't get frustrated at it. They're in a sequence. They're in the process somewhere learning a piece. They might get to that paper and pencil way that you know eventually, but they might be doing something else. And let me simplify this for you. Okay, let's look at another example that's a little easier. What about 8 by 15? Now, you'll have to trust me. I'm not going to give you the chance to count that. But this is an area. And to calculate the area or the total number of little squares in there, I've got to somehow count them all individually. I can use repeated addition and count columns if you like, or I can use multiplication and just know that the total number of squares is 15 times 8 or 8 times 15. That doesn't necessarily help me calculate, the total. But if I know that, I can do something with this. If I get my scissors out and cut it all the way through here, I then get 4. I've cut it. I now got 4 because I've halved this dimension, which is 8, and I put it like this, and now I've doubled this other dimension. What do I have along the top? What's double 15? 30. So now I have 4 by 30. What's 4 30s? Can I do that in my head? Is that easier? Oh yes, 4 30s. I know 4 3s are 12. So the answer must be 10 times greater, 120. So that is a lot easier to do that in your head. So that's a stepping stone, if you like, pardon the pun, stepping stone towards, and what we're trying to do is get them to something like this. Now what's that? Now you get sophisticated in your thinking. You can picture the rectangle, 12 by 45. 12 by 45, I don't know that. That's too hard. But if I cut the 12 in half and rearrange it, I then get 6 by 90. 6 times 90. 690 is easy to do in my head. Let me think. 6 9s are 54. So my answer must be 10 times greater, 540. Okay. Why would I do a big, long, double-digit algorithm is a technical term for it, but double-digit calculation the way you learn with lines like this, all these, there's actually 20 different ways to go wrong when you do it that way. There's just 20 different steps. I've done this calculation in 2 steps. I've halved this number, I've doubled that number, and now I know that 12 times 45 is the same as 6 times 90. 6 times 90 I can do in my head. So that's far more efficient. So don't get frustrated when the kids aren't doing it the way you learned it. They will get there eventually, no doubt. But a good mathematics program in the schools of your children will be showing them how to understand mathematics. It's not scary at all. The scary part's the anxiety. Don't create anxiety. Remove the confusion. Help them to understand why that is the same as that. Have I changed any or removed any little squares? No, I haven't. Now we can see that 8 by 15 is the same as 4 by 30, and that is easier to do in my head. Yeah. So this examples of what I'm talking about. There's many examples, but the number one to answer your question is don't try and do it the way you learned it. You'll cause confusion and you'll cause anxiety for both you and the child. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but I'll be honest with you. So if they're not going to do things the way that they were taught, the way that we know in our head, how do parents then know how else to teach the children? Is the fact that the schools are then going to provide them with these techniques the kids are now learning in schools?
But I can't speak for all teachers in all schools, but that's the expectation. They would use visual, we call them visual models. And the visual model could be something hands-on, like concrete cubes, or not concrete in the sense that a parent might know, like something you pick up and hold. In the technical education circles, we call them concrete materials because you can hold them. So cubes or counters, but there could be pictures as well. So use these pictures to help the understanding. Now, to answer your question, once they're doing it at home, you have to accept that they will get to to learn to do, in that case, computation. They will get to using a written format at some point. Just don't try and teach it when you want to teach it. Listen to your child. As part of that tip is just listen to the way the child's trying to show you. They're essentially trying to teach you. Yep. So try and show that they might be having a problem and understanding and what's going on. They can't quite recall. But don't jump in and say, no, don't do that. Just do this. And this happened to me just 2 weeks ago. A good Italian friend of mine, he's a builder, and he's very frustrated because he's got a child in primary school and a child at like 8th grade, and the child is not coming home doing the math the way he learned it. He's a year or two older than me. So he's in his 50s and he's frustrated. I'm trying to say, just back off. Let her try and educate you on what she's doing. It's part of a bigger picture, bigger teaching sequence. Try and listen, be cognizant, if I can use that word, understanding of what they're trying to do, and just try and help them through. And then you might go, oh yeah, now I see what you're trying to do. The worst thing you can do is say, don't do that, that's nonsense. Do this instead. Okay. You're actually impeding the instruction and you'll only cause tremendous confusion. Just listen and try and understand.
So how can parents teach their children just the basics? For example, how do kids learn what we used to call our times tables?
Yeah, I just want you to know, I don't know how I say how. I mean, the how is to go to Origo at home. That's our online program. You go to there or you can look at some other resources we have. But I just want you to be aware that there's another way of doing it. When you and I were in school, Rachel, the number one way for learning tables was to memorise it. You just had to memorise it. And you'd memorize things like, 7 8s are 56. But you weren't even showing the connection to 8 7s are 56. They were isolated facts. You didn't actually see they're related. I mean, take this example, for example, this one. What's 5 4s? You see how that 5 4s is the same as 4 5s? We help the children see connections between facts. There's not so much demand on their memory, if you like. How do I figure that out? I want the children to know, and by the time they get to learn this, they should already know this, that dimension is one of the factors. That dimension is the other factor, right? And I said to the children, what's 5 4s? What's 4 5s? I don't know what 5 4s are, and that's okay. They can not know. Okay, so when you first teach them, I don't know what 5 4s are. Do you know what 10 4s are? Now they should go, because that should be a prerequisite skill. A teacher in the sequence of things. Mathematics is so sequential. So in the sequence of things, they go, yes, I know what 10 4s are. 10 4s are 40. So what's 5 4s? Oh, it's half of that. I just showed you. It's half of that. I've halved that factor. This factor being 10, I've halved it. Now, you and I, we didn't, well, maybe I can't speak for you, but when I was in school, we weren't shown connections. And the more connections you have, the more understanding you have, and therefore there's less demand on your memory. When I was in school, some kids had a great memory and they tended to do well in mathematics. I didn't. I was questioning everything. Why? I want to know why. We never got the whys. Yeah. So a good question you can ask as a parent is when a child tells you an answer, and it might be because you are outside talking about something or other and you ask a really good math question. The best question you can follow that up with once you've asked and they give you an answer is, how do you know? Have the child justify his or her reasoning, justify and explain their understanding, why they know that's the right answer, or maybe why they think it's the wrong answer. Okay? Just another little bit. So I can't, in a forum like this, Rachel, I can't show you how to do it at home. I can give you tips of where to go to get it, but it's really just to understand that there's other ways of doing, basic facts. We call them basic facts now. Your teacher will probably call them basic facts, but when we were in school, we called them tables. And a lot of the parents out there today will still call them tables. It's the same thing. It's just a different language. You just got to know that your children may not know that what that word table is. It's probably the thing that's sitting out across at dinner. Okay?
Yeah. And so, I mean, things, as you've just alluded to, have changed so much since we were young, and there's so much information on the internet. So I'd love to understand from your perspective, do you have any suggested sites for parents and their kids at this time?
Yeah, well, obviously the number one site is what we've just developed for parents. So that's called Origo at Home, and I'm sure on this link that you provide, you'll provide the exact address to go to, and that provides 20 to 30 minutes of instruction every single day. It is free. It does not require a login. We don't want your email. We're just trying to help parents flatten that forgetting curve. Go on there, look at it. Just to correct you earlier on, it was no doubt correct when we sent you information. 20,000 people, you said, are using that that product. It's actually up to 90,000 now.
Oh,
So it's a
wow.
large number going onto it really quickly. Now, we developed that for this situation. As soon as this happened, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, just as I expected, a lot of companies, this is a credit to them, they just started pushing out their products free. Now, come and look at this. Here's a trial. Get onto this, da-da-da-da. That's all well and good, but those products were developed for yesteryear. Yesteryear was just 2 months ago. It's a different world we now live in. That's why we work day and night, and because I have a company in both the US and Australia, when we're sleeping, they continue the development over there and vice versa. It took us 2 weeks, and we developed a program for children in Australia and a whole different program for children in America. And it just provides that instruction. We're rolling that out week by week. So every week you'll see another. We just released the third week yesterday. So get online and check that out. To answer your question more fully, there's another really good site. My daughter Gemma, she's in 11th grade right now, so her year 11, first year of senior year. Last year, when we were living in Florida, actually, and she might tell you about this more in the future maybe, but she started a YouTube channel. It's free for everyone, and on there she has 2-minute videos, maybe they're around 2 minutes, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, and they're for children. And actually, to be honest, they're just as much for parents, because she shows children how to learn mathematics. The word is jargonistic word, conceptually. That is, using pictures, using models to help them understand the mathematics. So I get terrific feedback from parents and teachers who are using it. They find it very helpful. So there's, I don't know how many videos, there's well over 30 up there already. She's only been doing it a year. She's right here, actually. This is Gemma. And her channel's called Gemstones. So again, the link, no doubt you'll provide that, Rachel, but it's if you just go to YouTube and search Gemstones, one word, elementary math, all one word. So Gemstones elementary math. And I curate that for her because Gemma doesn't know, but Gemma wants to be a primary school teacher. So this is how she got into this. And she thought this is a great way to get an early understanding of teaching mathematics. So that's a great resource for parents to use at home. And again, it's free. There's activity sheets they can download to practice some of the ideas she's sharing.
All right, wonderful. And my last question before we sign off today is just that, how is Origo at Home, I guess, linked to the national curriculum? That was my last question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Both Origo at Home and Gemma's Gemstones, because I'm creating, I got to make sure that they are aligned to what is being taught in primary schools, and further. So I'm making sure they are aligned. But further to that, we're also trying our best to align it to what we believe children should be learning at this stage of the year, because we're a school term in. Again, mathematics is a sequential subject. It's highly structured. So there are certain prerequisites they need over the course of 12 months before they can do A, B, and C. So we figure they must be doing some of these at this point if they're following a good math program.
Yeah.
So we're making our best guess, because not every school is using our program, Stepping Stones or Go Math. So they might be using something else, but we're doing our best guess. So there's that to consider, not just alignment to Australian curriculum, but also alignment to what they're probably learning at the moment in schools.
Well, look, we're really grateful for your time and all the tips and advice you've given us today. We're going to have all of those links in the introduction paragraph, and really look forward to having another chat, hopefully in the next few weeks and some other time during term 2. Thanks so much for your time, James. We'll speak soon.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.